I'm too busy. I don't have enough time. I have all these deadlines. I have all these deliverables. I don't know why upper management thinks that I can get all of this done. Have you ever thought or said any of these things? If you do, you're not alone. You're just like how I used to be. And then I realized, ages ago, I realized that there was one thing that I could do that would change everything. And ever since then, I have practiced this over and over and over and over again until I reached a point where I found a rhythm and a cadence to my work that made all the difference in how I showed up and how I added value to the organization. And every single person who, after that point in time, has ever asked me or said to me that they were so busy, or how do I get everything I need to do done, I have given them this one simple trick. And it takes 3 days and your life will never be the same. I do it every single quarter to get myself, quote, back on track or to up level, because 1% better each quarter is 4% better over a year and 20% better over 5 years, just to kind of do a little bit of extrapolating there. So if you think 1% doesn't matter, 1% matters a whole bunch. I'm Erin. I like to talk about business, transformation strategy, and how to help early and mid-career individuals level up so that they can enjoy work and enjoy their lives. And I love coffee, and today's a coffee day, so bear with me. I'm going to be sipping it while we chat today because it's just one of those days. All right, so why are some people busy while others are effective? This is seemingly a mystery until you know the very, very simple little trick, and it takes exactly 3 days to do. It takes a lot of effort and diligence on your part for 3 days, but it's not one of those things where you have to do it day in and day out. You do one thing for 3 days as you're going about your day and night, and you don't change anything about your days. You just do this one thing alongside your days consistently for 72 hours, and then at the end of the 72 hours, there's about a 1 hour bit of work that you need to kind of set aside and sit down and finish things off, and it will blow your mind. And I do this about every quarter because I start finding that instead of being effective, I am busy. And so it's very easy to kind of run into the busyness trap. So easy to run into the busyness trap. And I like to stay in the effective zone. So if you think linearly, and on one side is busy and on the other side is effective, then you can constantly keep shifting yourself consciously towards effective rather than busy. And every quarter I sit down and I do this exercise alongside 3 days of my life, 3 back-to-back days of my life, so that I can, because I start nudging towards, just my nature, I start nudging towards busy. And I always try to then move back to effective. And over the course of time, I used to be all the way on the side of busy, and over the course of time I have moved across to effective a majority of the time, and it's kind of a sliding scale, but I'm inching ever closer to being effective. And I thought today would be a great day to talk about this because it is my number one tip for people who feel overwhelmed, burnt out, and just busy. Because today I'm doing my once a quarter 3 day activity, and so today is a Tuesday, so I started this morning, so Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and then Friday morning I will sit down and spend an hour and I will assess and modify to shift back to effective. All it is writing down how you're spending your time. And I do it on a worksheet. There's lots of ways that you can do it. You can do it on the computer, you can do it on an app, you can do it on your phone. I do it on a worksheet, and I have a template. Actually, let me grab that. I set my coffee down for just a second. So I have a template, and it's got 4 columns. It's super simple, and during the first 72 hours, you're only going to fill out with the 3rd column and the 4th column, and this is going to be your shorthand. And the way that it works is on the 3 days that you're going to start. So whatever you're doing right now, you can start as soon as this video finishes, and you can write down the start time and the thing that you're doing. And you're going to want to write this down all day long, and then you're going to even put like what time you go to sleep, and then in the morning when you wake up, you're going to put what time you wake up. The more detailed you are, and yes, being detailed takes time, but the more detailed you are, the better this works. And I'll go into the reason for that in just a second. At the end of the 72 hours, you will come over here to your first two columns, and you'll come to column 2, and you will look at the start time of one activity, and you'll look at the start time of the next, and that'll give you the amount of minutes that you spend on that first activity. So for example, if at 8 a.m. I make coffee, and at 8:10 a.m. I hop in the shower to get ready for the day, and at 8:45 a.m. because I take long showers, I come into my office to finish getting dressed and proper for the day, and then at 9 a.m. I sit down to the computer to work on something with and prep for a client meeting. A little bit later in the morning, then I'm going to list all of those things separately. So then I can clearly see when I get to the end of the 72 hours and I spend my 1 hour in columns 1 and 2, I can clearly see that it takes me 10 minutes to make a coffee and kind of transition to shower mode. But then now I can't remember what I said for shower time, but let's say that it's 8:10 to 8:45, then that's 35 minutes in the shower. And so I can tell myself all day long that I can take a shower in 10 minutes. But the reality is it took me 35 minutes when I come back and I look at this. And I go on throughout the entire day. And so I do all of those things. And so when I'm doing my time, it's very easy. I don't need to put a start time and an end time, because my end time is the beginning of my next activity. And there's no gaps. If you stop and you go to the bathroom, you write that down. And by the way, if you take your phone into the bathroom and you watch YouTube shorts, or you hop on Instagram, or you watch some dance videos on TikTok, then your bathroom break is going to be bathroom and social media, or bathroom and TikTok, because you really want to see how you're pairing things as well. Very often after I make coffee in the afternoon, I will stop and I will read for 15, 20, 30 minutes at a time. So I will make coffee, and then I will put as a separate activity, drink coffee and read. And I will not just put read, I will put read fiction, read business book, read web article, because I want to be really specific at how I'm breaking out my time. This doesn't mean that you need to write and write and write for each activity. Each activity should only be 3 or 4 or 5 words maximum. It's just enough to trigger you when you get to the end of the 72 hours to really know how you're spending your time. So then you go down column 2 and you will write down all of your times. And you I actually have this sheet on my website. So if you go to erintran.com after the end of this video, on the homepage at the very top, you can put in your name and hit submit, and it'll send you a link to get this worksheet. Now, before I go to the last column, one thing that is really important for you to think about when you're thinking about how you're going to log this. I carry around a piece of paper because I find that it's very easy to carry a piece of paper and a pen or pencil with me. And I literally, whatever I'm doing all day long, I go from place to place and I just carry them with me. And the first time I did it, I was uncomfortable. I was like, people are going to think I'm so weird. But you know what? I realized that it's more important to me to be effective rather than busy than it is for what some stranger somewhere might think of me. And the reality is you're not actually around strangers all day long, especially if you are in business and working. You're at your desk working. And so as you transition from activity to activity, whether it's checking emails, whether it's chatting with a colleague that walked up to your desk, whether it's working on a PowerPoint, whether it's getting ready for a presentation, whether it is going and attending a meeting, and you log all those things down, you'll realize that you're the one that notices this most of all, because you're constantly logging what you're doing throughout the day. So tools in hand, I print out 6 or 7 of these at the beginning, and I can go back and print out more if I want to, but it's a free template, so you can grab it on the website or you can create your own. But when you finish this column, you're going to total all the minutes for all the sheets that you've got. Then you will come back to these and you will look thematically at what you've written down. And I would say select for yourself. I have about 8 or 9 categories, but each time when I do this, depending on the ebb and flow of my life and the things that I'm focused on during those 3 days, sometimes categories might look slightly differently. But over the course of years, I have categorized things into pleasure time, meetings, getting ready for the day, time with family, meeting prep. So you may have a few different categories when it comes to work things if you do this on 3 business days. And what you want to do is just somewhere off to the side, you want to write down your 5 to 10 categories. And then, and I would bucket things like sleep. I would just put sleep into its own category, because you can kind of look at that time separately from all the rest. So then over here, whatever those categories are, you can put all those categories in. And if you've got categories, I just usually will take, like, if I've got sleep, meetings, then I put S over here for sleep, I put M for meetings, and so on. So it's very quick for me to go and fill this out based on what it is. And if it's more than one item, so let's say I am drinking coffee and I'm reading, I'm pleasure reading, then I'm going to put R for relaxation. And let's say I'm reading a business book. So I am then learning. So I'm going to put P/L, 1 for pleasure, because my coffee is just like my pleasure time, and then L for learning. So I will categorize P/L for these. And then after you finish that, and this activity shouldn't take too long, I'm going to guess about 45 minutes. Then you want to do, as a final activity, you want to go and you want to take your total minutes and you want to add up how many minutes per category. And then wherever you've written your categories, you will want to just sum those up. And the very last step in this process is to really look at the categories of things that you have summed up. And I find sometimes that I have, over the course of those 3 days, given almost no time for pleasurable activities. And sometimes I find that I had far more meetings than I realized, or far more meeting prep than I realized, or I didn't spend very much time with family. And so what it does is I then am able to have an inner dialogue with myself. And I ask myself some key questions. Did I think I was spending my time this way? Is this time aligned to how I want to spend my life? So if I think to myself that health is the most important thing, and my category E for exercise has 3 hours in it for the entire week, that's a huge problem for me, because mentally I have thought to myself that between taking daily walks and exercising, I do stretching in the morning for 15 to 20 minutes every day. I walk my son to school in the morning and pick him up every day. And then I usually do between 15 and 45 minutes workout. And then I try to go to the sauna about 3 or 4 times a week. And that round trip takes like an hour. So if I had 3 hours or even 6 hours dedicated to exercise or training, that would be problematic for me, because that number for me should, over those 3 days, should be much higher than that. Or if I extrapolate out to a week, during those 3 days, let's say it was 45 minutes, that's problematic, because I would have expected for it to be around 4 to 6 hours in those 3 days, or perhaps even longer. And so it's a really good way of saying, like, what are my values and what are the behaviors that I would have expected, and are the things that I'm doing in line with that? And for those of you that are watching this because you are a busy person in the workplace, this is why I started doing it and why I have found it effective. I found that I was in so many meetings. There was one period of time where I was working a ton of hours and I was like, damn, I'm just busy, but I'm not sure that I'm effective. I found that in those 3 days, I was in 22 hours of meetings. Now, I wasn't working 8-hour days, because an 8-hour day would have given me 24 hours. But when in 3 days I have 22 hours of meetings, and I haven't counted in prep for meetings, why I'm in the meetings, all those things, I knew something had to change. And so the very first time that I did this, I went from 22 hours of meetings to 9 hours of meetings. Now, 9 hours of meetings rounds out to about 3 hours of meetings a day if you do this for 3 days. And I felt like at the time that that was the right amount, or perhaps I had overcorrected, because I then did this experiment like 2 weeks later just to kind of see how it was working, because I'd made some massive changes. But I found that I then was more effective and instead of being busy. And so I got more done, I provided more value, and I spent less time doing it because I took a really hard look at what I was doing. So this is why every single quarter I get out my little time effectiveness paper, and I take 3 days and I carry it around with me. Actually, I go through about 7 or 8 of these in a 3-day period, so print a handful. Again, website is erintran.com, and right at the top on the homepage there's a spot for you to put in your email address, and I will send you a link to download your free copy of this. Again, if you wanted to do it yourself, there's four things on here: category, total minutes, start time, and activity. Once you do this activity, at the end of that 3 days, you do your 1 hour exercise. I promise you will never look at time and the value of your time the same. Have a great day. Thank you.